beware if you don't want to be in the recording. Uh, it's being recorded right now, and this is Refresh Coffee Time. Good morning, everyone. Refresh Coffee Time comes to you every Saturday, and it is part of Refresh Organizers and Designers. And we are here to support you, create the space that is absolutely for you, and works with all of the things that will make you feel happy and grounded and functional, productive nowadays in our spaces. So without further ado, Andrea, I'm going to give the floor to you so that you can start explaining a little bit what you are going to cover today.
Okay, so did we want to wait and see if we had a few more people join before I started? It's
of course. Yeah, but you know, you can start just telling us a little bit of the scope of your talk today. We'll give it another 5 minutes, and then you can I'm sure that you want to share your screen, right? So
yes. So you can make me the co-host.
I'm gonna do that right now while you're talking.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe I'll just show the first slide and talk a little bit about Studio M and see if we get a few more folks here. Okay. All right. So my name is Andrea Sessa. I'm the principal of Studio M, Merged architecture and landscape architecture firm in Oakland. I'm hearing some beeping. Is that me?
It's interesting. Today I have to allow everyone into the room. I think Zoom changed a couple of their whatever instructions, or I have to look at the profile to see what happens, because this is the first time that it's happening. Yeah, so sorry about the beep.
I hear you loud and clear. There's no beeping on this end.
Oh, okay. So, probably because you're a co-host, Andrea. So
come in. Okay, yeah. I can just ignore the chimes. That's totally fine.
Yeah, see it as music.
Absolutely. So, we are a residential architecture and landscape architecture firm. We also work with private schools and designing playgrounds and small buildings and remodels. And because we're a team of architects and landscape architects, we look at not just the building footprint and the interior spaces, but we design gardens and the connection to outdoor spaces. And in the Bay Area, these are valuable spaces, valuable square footage to take advantage of. And I start with this slide. We're talking about ADUs in particular today, because it does capture what's really important to my team and I, in connecting, and to me personally is connecting time. You're providing access to light, space, air, and gardens really does affect our mental health. It really does affect our livability of our home. So the way we design is in kin with these quotes. And this is a project that we worked on a while ago in Rockridge. And if you can imagine standing in the position of the photographer, if you're standing in front of an ADU. So what we'll talk a little bit about today is a lot of the things you should know before you start a project, but in design, how does the addition of an accessory dwelling unit, another structure in your backyard, affect the space in between? So if I'm standing in front of the front door of the ADU and it actually is a cottage, do you share this space with the renter, with the family member? Or are you trying to carve out separate spaces because that's important to you? How do they get there? So it's that combination of architecture and landscape architecture that we feel is really important and sometimes missing in the design of ADUs, not just the design, but in the budget and preparing it. So for today, this is just a reminder of what I'm going to walk through is a lot of the things that you should know before you start a project, and we'll show the schematic design of one project in particular. And that's really just what you'll see today is an example for one property of just one part of what architecture firms provide for full services. So inventory and schematic design, you're inventorying all the information, which we'll get to. You have schematic design. There's a separate phase of design development, another of permit set and construction documents, and another of construction administration. That's why when people say, oh, I can't believe this takes a year, you know, there's a lot to do. So what you'll see today is really just this part one as an example. And I won't, you know, read all of this today, but part of the inventory and what's so important to begin is a survey of the property. So this, and I'll zoom in a little bit, I've blocked off because this is a potential client of ours, and I just don't want to reveal the location of it to everyone today. So this is in Oakland, really typical size lots that are smaller, narrow, craftsman style houses. A lot of the parameters that a lot of homeowners in the East Bay in general have to deal with when they're looking at ADUs. What does a survey gain you? You know, why start? Why put out $1,500, $2,000 for a survey when you really just want to start design? You have floor plans, you've looked at units online, that's all very exciting. What the survey tells you is all the information that you're going to need to know about what you can build on your property. So it's part of a feasibility study. So this is the footprint of your home, for example. This is your driveway for this client. There's an existing garage that goes over the property line shared with a neighbor. There's a bend in the property line. It gives you all of the accurate dimensions, which, and this one you can see there's a 5-foot sewer reserve, which you can't build over. So there's all of this information together with when you go to the city of Oakland in this case, or any jurisdiction, and you find out what zone you're in, what your setbacks are. Let's back out of this. Okay, I think we can make it a little, yeah, that's good. So when you have your survey, you have some property information. The next thing you do is you talk to the jurisdiction, which can be the city, or it could be a county, depending on what jurisdiction holds for your property. And each one will have a little bit different definition of what an accessory dwelling unit is. So it is what it sounds like. It's accessory. It's in addition to the main house. It's a dwelling unit, meaning it has a kitchen and bath and someone can live there, or you could rent it, and it has those amenities. In Oakland, they're defined as a junior ADU, which involves the conversion of a space within the building envelope. Then there's a category 1 and 2. So we're going to bounce back between these two diagrams. So something that is a category 1 is you're converting square foot space, like a garage or a basement conversion, into the ADU. That's a junior ADU. And there's slight differences, but we're making generalizations for today. Then there's an attached ADU and then a detached ADU. And if we go back to this, category 2 involves, that's your detached ADU. So it's a new structure, detached or attached. So category 2 would be this one, or this one. And in the example that we have in the property, or which you can see the site plan here, nothing's ever quite completely clear in definitions, right? So here we have, this is the property we're looking at today. Here's the garage that they share with this neighbor over a property line, which would not be able to be built today. So what category is that, right? So, you know, how do you rebuild this or renovate it when it's actually partially not your property? So what does that mean in terms of setbacks and how it's defined? You really do need to go to the city and talk to them about how they're going to interpret those categories and rules for your particular property. So it's getting this information ahead of time. And I do want to share that Urban Planners Inc. has put, this is their diagram and their statistics. They put a lot of great information out, and they're great. It's a great website to check out for what they do. And what they were looking at in their research, and this isn't current this year, but we're in looking at one, you know, part of the reason a lot of people are here today is how can I generate more income with the property that I have. The property in the East Bay, the Bay Area, is very expensive. It's more and more expensive to live here. So if you have equity in your house and you can make extra income, how can I do that? There's also a push to create more housing. You know, in the Bay Area, there was a shortage of housing. And what they looked at was there's 18,000 parcels in Oakland that could accommodate an ADU. That's a lot of housing. And it already exists, you know, the property already exists. So if they could make the process more simple, they're looking at that as one of many ways the city is trying to provide more housing. So just a, you know, a little bit of background on why it's become easier lately, and it's a great idea on several fronts. So let's think about what are the parameters when we look back at what the survey tells you, what your zone tells you, and what the City of Oakland's definitions of ADUs tell you. What are the things that you need to consider? So let's look through site considerations. This is our site again. So in yellow, I've highlighted the houses around our subject property, which is this one with a little bend in it. And this is their existing garage. So your building setbacks, and I'm sorry if there are folks who know all about this, so just be patient. It's the distance from each property line, sides, front, and back, that a building or site structure cannot exist. And so why? You know, why can't we build out to the property line? And this diagram down on the left shows you if there was an ADU, which is orange, an accessory dwelling unit, pushed to the property line on several lots, the potential fire hazard, number one, of having so many buildings built close together just can't be sustained, you know, for a city. Also, noise. You can imagine having that many residential units close to each other. Light, air, view. So there's a reason, you know, people think, oh, I wish I could build in that 5-foot setback. There are bigger regional reasons why those setbacks are in place. And you can see that if you put setbacks in place, there is protection in between each home for all those uses, for light, for fire. So special districts or overlay zones that you should know about for your property. So this is a relatively flat site in an Oakland neighborhood. If you're in a hillside zone, the rules about how you build on that site, the coverage, the setbacks are different. There are wildfire assessment districts that are different. The construction is different, so the cost will go up. There are wildlife interface zones, flood zones, landslide areas, historic structure or district. Some soils in some areas are so bad that they might require a geotechnical report, or the structural engineering of the structure is actually just more costly than you would think. Easements or right-of-way of use. These two houses are subject here, share a driveway, right? So that driveway, depending on what Oakland says, might still need to accommodate off-street parking. And so what does that mean for the person who's living in this unit? Are they able to park there? Do they walk down the driveway to get home? What are the rules about keeping this access clear? And there are also utility easements that you can't build on that might be wider than a setback. And also parking requirements. You used to have to accommodate an additional parking space per unit, and Oakland has eased that accommodation. But that's tricky because that's 9 by 20, or that's a big space to accommodate a car on a site. So finding out about all of these, you might say, well, the architect says the feasibility study is a certain amount of money and the survey is a certain amount of money, and this seems like thousands of dollars of upfront cost just to get the design going. Well, if you can imagine hiring someone to do a design you're falling in love with, a floor plan, only to find out you have to go back and redesign because that won't fit, or it's not supported on the site for the rules. So it's really important. A lot of this can be super simple. A lot of this doesn't apply to a lot of sites, but it's really important to know when you start. So what's a little more fun than all of that is, how do you want to live in your ADU? How are you going to use it? How's it going to generate money for you? What's important to you? So with all those parameters in place, you're also at the same time working with an architecture firm that is going to ask a lot of questions about how you see yourself using the space. So and this is our subject property down here with the gray as a setback, and that's the main house, and here's a floor plan from a unit that's say an online ADU floor plan you can get. So one question you can ask, am I going to rent this to generate income? Most people say yes. Are you renting to family or to a senior family member or adult child? You may need to really look at accessibility for that for a senior member. Is it a full-time rental or part-time? Is it going to be a home office, a studio, or a guest room for a long time with the potential to be a rental for income? Do you need additional storage? Do you see yourself moving into that unit and renting out your main house now or in 5, 10, 20 years? So how do these possible uses affect the way that you access the front door of the ADU and how you share the outdoor spaces that are in between? So you can imagine in this, we'll zoom in right here. Imagine so this unit in particular doesn't quite fit, as a floor plan that you saw online. It's a nice modern layout. It's really unlikely Oakland's going to allow you to build to the property line here. This is new construction, right? So the part of that garage comes down, and this has got to follow setbacks. So one, you have, this isn't quite going to work. If this is serving, let's just say, an older family member or an adult child, and you're designing this space and the access in and out, and it's like a family compound. You have this lovely space in between that you can design as a garden. Well, what happens if you want to rent that to someone else? Are you willing to share that space? Are you a gregarious social person and looking for someone like that to rent to? Or are you a pretty private person? If this becomes your main residence someday, do you want to share that space? So thinking through all of those kinds of uses for yourself now and into the future. And we would talk to people all the way down to, do you like to garden? Do you like indoor, outdoor living? Do you entertain inside and outside? All of those kinds of things, whether it's for the ADU or for the main house. What kind of light do you like in the space? So let's see. Let's go back and scale. So we sort of just covered all of these. So when I say prefab or floor plans online, there are a lot of great plans and companies that provide something that might work for your site. What I caution about that is there may or may not be cost savings, because by the time you have to do site work to accommodate, say, a flat ADU floor plan, if your site isn't flat, the site work that's needed to accommodate that The windows may or may not be where you'd like them to be for north and south light, or to look at the garden, or to enter. So you have to pay for the custom windows to be added. So there are changes that might need to happen to something that's more prefab, which may or may not end up saving you money. Really good companies will go through all of that with you, and they will cover all the same things about a survey and about the site that an architecture firm would do for a custom one. And if they're not, you know, I'd be careful, because the same, whether you have a prefab unit or a custom one, all of those things about the city and the research and the inventory feasibility study needs to be done anyway. So let's look at this one. So if this client is saying, well, you know what, I'm not so sure, I want to share this space in between. The blue is sort of showing how I get into my house from the backyard, and this is this nice big room that opens up with accordion doors here. I'm not sure I really want to share that space. So let's look at an option. This shows, again, the same property. The yellow is the main house. Let's look at a footprint for an ADU that has its own yard facing the back. So instead of them both facing each other, where this blue area was here, this area has been designed for the main house. The main house has a 2-level deck, a large hedge and lush green plantings in between, mostly a solid wall of the ADU, so the ADU is facing this back corner. The back corner then has the accordion doors, which has a nice open indoor-outdoor living space. So in this scenario, if family was living here, they are sort of turning their back on the other family, right? You know, so if they wanted an option where this was shared, maybe this is a door and maybe this is more open, or they simply come over here and spend time with their family in this space, and they know they have their own space to go to when they want some privacy. So it does afford a little bit more option. This would work really well if you think you want to rent it to someone else you don't know someday. It really allows you to have your own space and define what that is and use it without any special scheduling, and allows that person with a very, you know, a small footprint for a house to have an outdoor space. And let's look at that without this shading. So taking the yellow off, you can see that in the ADU here, you would come up the driveway through a fence to get to your backyard if this is your main house, but you could also, as a renter, enter the fence through this little trellised area. So you have a little garden entry and enter your ADU back here. You have a kitchen along this wall, and living and dining opening up to the courtyard. The bathroom, which is mostly solid walls for privacy, has a window for light here. And then the bedroom faces also the outdoor living space. And you could have translucent glass on these 2 windows. If it's right on the property line, there maybe need to be an hour rated wall, which when we think about that diagram with all the orange blocks and fire, an hour rated wall just means it's an assembly of materials that keeps fire from spreading for an hour. And that may or may not be what you need to construct these walls with, depending on where they fall near a setback and depending on the city. So all that goes into thinking about light and air. So what does this space back here look like? You know, it doesn't need to be very big. Big accordion doors, you know, this is a bigger property, but this indoor-outdoor space just needs you to save money in the budget for a really nice set of doors so that you have the exterior space that you can use. It doesn't need to be big. It can be a tiny little corner in the back, and if it's built out well, it's a really, really nice amenity. So the final drawing that shows all of this with some labels, it's the same thing, same design. And this is option 1. The deck and grilling area, tile or concrete floor, all the way generous. So let's look at another, let's look at another. So this is the second option, which in talking to our main client, that they really wanted a patio space that was down on the ground. All deck up here for grilling, a few folks to hang out with the cook, and some steps that wrap around to a nice big concrete bench. And then this is a 4-foot wall that a big bench is built into, right? So they have outdoor dining here, and we have a larger area and large shrubs in that 4-foot wall, creating a real buffer, a real bookend to this space for the main owner. And then here we have a solid wall. As you come in the ADU unit, let's go to the next one, because this is more of a diagram. As you come into the ADU unit, you have your little entry courtyard with a fence and a bench. And you come in, place to put your keys and mail. You have a galley kitchen with a refrigerator, stove, and sink, which wraps around to a tiny dining. And then you have your living space with the doors that open to an outdoor space similar to option 1. And this one's tucked in the opposite corner. If we go back really quickly, let's see, let me see what we're on, 14. These, can everyone see my cursor? Yeah. So one thing we look at when we look at the site is we're talking about this corner and this corner. Now, if there was a house or another dwelling unit here, that's something to take into consideration. I mean, right now, there's not much there. So when we're looking at this space, it is pretty quiet. You know, we can see that in the site plan. Now, that doesn't mean that someone can't build their ADU, you know, in the setback on the sure. But we do know what we're dealing with right now. So this one, we walked through the ADU this way. If you take a right, you have a bedroom that opens up with a window or door to the courtyard. And then again, a little more solid walls with some light toward a garden for privacy for the bathroom. And let's look at, so in either case, this corner for the main house, the owners, this is an example of what a 4-foot high wall with planting behind can really create that bookend. So if you imagine an ADU behind this, how much privacy you could gain if you're doing the site planning and the garden design and the architectural design all at once. A little pop of color. And this is another example of the space that's behind the ADU unit. Need to be big, you know, doesn't need to be too wide to provide a really nice outdoor amenity. If the budget has saved money, you know, for this space to be built out. And this is just an example. It's a little bit bigger than the ADU would be, but of a galley kitchen. It can be pretty narrow. It can be shorter than that. So this is the final plan for that option 2, without the diagram and the setback showing and some labels on ADU courtyard, dining, bedroom, galley kitchen. So let's look at one more. So this one organizes, there's some aspects about this one. It's a little bit bigger. So you can see the space in between is much more narrow. There's not as wide of a lush garden space in between, but you are getting a little bit larger ADU space. A potential for loft storage above this bathroom, and a larger space here for the main unit. So let's walk through this from the main unit, the owner's perspective. So they come out with a space for grilling, very similar layout of a concrete bench and a large concrete bench for, which is something I know that they like, for their outdoor living. And then this large tree and a really tall hedge. So this wall would be a full height solid wall. And that wall is facing south. It's something we haven't chatted about before. So the pitch of this roof would be low here and high here. So it would be letting in all of the nice north light or northeast light, and skylights could highlight this hallway. So in coming in the gate here, there's the front door. You have this nice long hallway with a tall window from floor to ceiling looking at this garden at the end with skylights above. So you come into a space that architecturally is organized really well with light, and then off at a 90-degree angle, the other spaces are organized. So you come in, you have a closet, you come over, there's the bathroom and the shower and and the bedroom, and then you have a small kitchen with a window full height to the garden, and then here's your living space. This would have to be living and dining, so it's a little bit bigger, but we didn't draw the dining in. It would probably be along this wall. And you have a little bit more buffer in this one. We've taken out some space in the middle and put more planting around the edges. So it's a little more lush, a little more green, but you still get the outdoor, a bench and some outdoor seating. And so let's look. I'm going to bounce a little bit toward this one. So when we were talking about if the pitch of this roof was high here and low here, then you could put solar on this, and it's facing south, so you're maximizing your solar. You could have skylights here over the hallway, and then this roof over the bedroom is low. So you have more of a flat roof here and a pitched roof here, and then the water can drain off this main roof into this garden space. So there's a similar roof studies for the other two as well. Concrete benches create a nice additional seating for a dining space. This is a big house, but how does a pitched roof that has a solid wall on one side and mostly glass on another really open up toward the morning light or midday light? So this is the finished plan, and again, looking at this is skylights would be. This is where the views would be. This would be as much glass as you can afford. So not as glassy as that image, but the idea is really opening it up to this back space over here. So one more of that diagram. And two things. So I went back to those same quotes, and just reiterating how important it is to find out the correct information for your site and what you can do. That feasibility study in the beginning is worth the time and money, because you're going to maximize what you get out of your site, and you're going to spend a lot of money on an accessory dwelling unit, whether it's connected or detached. And so if you're spending that much money, you really want to maximize every square footage of your property to benefit you, either in how much you can make off the property and how much you can use it in the way you want to now and in the future. So I like this image because this isn't a very big space, but it really allows someone, here to connect and literally feel like they're sitting outside. And with enough thought and design, those kinds of moments can be incorporated into these small structures. So that concludes it. I do want to share a few slides of resources. We're not financial planners, but we do understand that for people to be able to undertake a project like this, they need to do financial planning. And that might mean you need to talk to a mortgage broker about refinancing or a HELOC. You need to know how much equity is in your home. You're re-looking at your insurance after something like folks that I've worked with.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Andrea.
Knows who are fantastic resources for insurance and mortgage. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Is it, am I okay now?
Yes, you're okay now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's just these last, okay, good. So these last two slides are just resources for you because it's a whole team of people that helps make this happen. You know, obviously maybe someone, a banker, a financial planner, a mortgage broker, someone who can look at your insurance. And I always think, you know, if you're looking at it in a junior ADU, one that's in your house and attached to your house, or converting a portion of your house to an ADU, so not the example I gave today, then what you need to do, I have Alan here and I have Juliet, of course. How can your existing home serve you better? And if you clean up and make repairs, is there a way you can rent a room, you know, and spend less money, and not take on such a big expense? So, you know, whether you're doing the ADU in the back or not, people, there are repairs you should make to your home to keep the maintenance, you know, you don't want to defer maintenance. And Alan's a fantastic reference. And whether you're looking at having the main home serve you better, or how might the ADU, the interior design, the storage is so important in a small building, and Juliet and Gary are fantastic at that. So I'll end with this slide. A lot of great resources, and I can, you know, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Andrea. This has been extremely interesting. If you unshare for a minute, I'll put up all your beautiful faces here. Okay, there you are. And I will open for questions. Who is the first one that would like to ask a question to Andrea? Okay, I'll give it to Paul. Paul, unmute yourself.
Really nice presentation, Andrea. I'm a contractor, and so we're looking to buy something now. How much lead time for a feasibility study? Because, you know, when you're looking to buy something, you've got to move pretty quick. And my idea is to try to create 3 units out of something. Buy something very big, do a legal ADU as a second unit, and the third unit would be in the shared space to create a community house. That's kind of my vision. So the question is, feasibility studies, how much time does that take? Because obviously when you're buying something, you can't take too long.
Gosh, it's such a good question. So to get a survey, which you can do in parallel of finding out other information. I mean, to pay for a survey before you purchase is tough, right? You know, that's $1,500 or $2,000 you may not want to spend giving a survey for a property you don't own yet, maybe. In a normal world where you could go down to the city of Oakland or Berkeley or wherever the property is and just meet with a planner, you can do that within a day or two and find out, say, this is the property, what are the zones, the setbacks, and the rules for multiple units, and they would be able to tell you on the spot what that project or what that property can support. And, you know, in the gray areas around what they're telling you. We have not been in the position of needing to do that with sheltering. You know, some of the planners, you can get them on an email and find out how to access the planning department. Tell them this is the property address and I have questions about accessory dwelling units. And see, we have 3 projects under construction, so it's kind of hit or miss who we're getting at the city. And once we get them on email, we just hold on and we keep that conversation going. That to me, it could be, you could have information within a week, you know, general information about what's allowed if you can get a hold of them. What they won't show, what they may not have, you know, are all the easements for the project.
Oh, that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, the survey will show that, but they'll just be pulling up information that they have. So yeah, see if the seller has any documentation if there's any surveys, plot plans, any kind of maps, existing drawings from the seller, and then talking to a planner at the jurisdiction that it's in. And to have an architecture firm do, you know, a full feasibility study, you know, by the time you interview with them, they write a proposal, you get a survey, and then they actually put together the heights and maximum build out, FAR, lot coverage and everything. That's several months. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of work, but it's, if you have the property, the big advantage is that you have full insight in what you can do. So going to a local government, any place on this planet, because I did it in many countries, is you'll get what the restrictions are, but that doesn't give you the opportunity window. So that is, I think, the best way of putting it, right, Andrea? What you do is you give someone all the windows of opportunity, and the local government will give you all the restrictions. But I'm really afraid if you're telling me that they are not able to give you the easements, because these are the factors, and I don't know if everybody knows that, but my master is in urban design and planning. So I always look at locations with the eyes of, you know, what are the dotted lines here? So what are the setbacks? What are the easements? What can you build? How tall is it? What is the maximum volume that you can create here?
Well, that the city should be able to tell you height limits, FAR, which is the floor area ratio, the lot coverage. So if the building is taking up right now 30% the existing house of the property, which you should be able to get the square footage of the footprint from the city and the property. If the maximum coverage of the lot by a structure is 40% or 60%, that also goes into how much, you know, you can't put a building on the whole site up to the setbacks.
Yeah, very important to know that.
It's too much coverage, and it's too much of all those other things. Not enough air, light, too much fire, too much density, you know, for that zone. But the city, the planner can tell you all of that, and I'm happy to help you look at something on an hourly basis if you need assistance, you know, asking the right questions or organizing it. If it, you know, needs, it depends on the week you ask me, but I might be able to help you quickly.
Yeah. Well, also we're looking in Nevada, so we can start to get familiar with the city and how things go. But we might find something in Center Feld that we have to move quick on. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, Santa Fe's not as big as Oakland, so you might get some responses from planners pretty quick.
Yeah, so there's some questions in the chat. Are you able to see the chat too? Because people are asking questions. I don't want to hog up all the questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have one. Kim, the audio issues. Yeah, there was some audio issues a while ago.
Right.
And let's see, what is Keisha? Would you like to ask a question, Keisha?
No, I'm not asking a question. I'm just saying that I'm an architect as well. So thank you, Andrea, for a really nice presentation. I do the same thing.
Yeah, great.
I have one comment though. Solar is required.
Oh, for ADUs in Oakland?
Everywhere. It's the Cal Green. It's the green code. So if you're building a new ADU, a new one, not an attached one.
Right.
Building a new one, my understanding is that solar panels are required on new construction.
Are required. Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't catch that. Probably because it's for new ones, but it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, and we're trying to push clients to solar in the main homes. If they're changing hot water heaters, go to electric. That's where everything's going.
Yeah, no more extending gas lines to ADUs. You know, it's going to be electric.
Right.
They're putting restrictions on stovetops, right? Stoves and ovens now for new construction.
Has to be.
No more gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrea, I think Kim also has a question concerning the dollar part of this.
Project cost, yeah, it's a little hard to tell on that one because we don't have the finishes, you know, or the types of doors and windows, you know. So an ADU could cost between, you know, $200,000 without any of that landscaping or site work to $400,000, you know, and then upwards, because if it's a bigger lot and it's not a tiny little one like I showed you today, which is pretty tiny, it's a new house, you know, it's new house construction, it's $500,000 up, you know. So then, you know, what's your investment is back in how much the property's worth after, so selling later, but also the income that you'll receive from that unit.
Wow. Yeah, you also mentioned prefab type of homes that we've all seen in Dwell, or we see advertised, the tiny home thing. Have you seen any of those that you thought were better than others that you like personally?
I mean, there are, I don't want to say right now, and I could maybe send a list because I might leave a few out that are actually really good. I don't have experience because we do custom design, and maybe Kasha can share a few that she knows might be good. Because we do custom design, I always feel like people are, you know, and apologies to anyone who's a big advocate of them, that you might be losing out in some way because it is prefab. You know, it is, the windows and doors may not always be where you need them to be. So I think a really good company is one that's been doing it a long time, that goes through the same process and understands the feasibility study aspect of it. They can accommodate rated walls as part of their construction as options, and a lot of them do now. And, you know, sort of flexibility with the type of unit and the site. I mean, for someone who's saying, you know, this ends up being the right size, and I can't, and the right price, and it's a flat lot, you know, there's a lot of things going for a simple prefab, that might be a great way to go. And they feel like they can't afford to choose any different windows anywhere for any reason, like they've got to start making money, or they've got to get a home office because their family of 5 is now sheltering in their house, you know. So there may be reasons that that's good, but coming from the custom world, I think you can be super creative and get a lot for your money that way.
I'm an advocate for custom also, just because that's what I do, but also because every property is different. There is no singularity in this. So please do not believe someone who will tell you, oh, I can, you know, be my partner in this business where we can, you know, manufacture these custom units and we can put them all over Oakland. It's not going to happen. Every city is going to have a different approach to ADUs, and they all do. So you have to be really careful reading what their ADU regulations are. Even though the state had a mandate, every city adopted a different approach to planning their ADUs. So, you know, Albany's different, Berkeley's different, Oakland's different, everything.
Yeah.
And every site, every parcel is different. I had a project a few years ago where a family hired an architect and spent a lot of money, designed an attached accessory dwelling unit. And then after they spent a lot of money on the architectural fees, they found out that there is a diagonal sewer easement that goes through the backyard.
Oh.
So then they hired me, and I designed this triangular thing that avoided the sewer easement, which ended up being too much money. Out of the custom ones, the beautiful ones, beautiful prefabs are by Blue, BLU. They're in, I think, somewhere north of here. Yeah,
but I think you already nailed it, Kasia, because the main thing here is if you are planning not to deviate from what you can buy. I mean, let's compare it. You buy a furniture piece, right? So if you buy a modular furniture piece that is exactly the way you're going to use it, and you don't do anything about it, that's perfect. You have the price of it. You can decide, am I going to do this? Am I not going to do it? It would be the same thing as I buy a standard piece of furniture and then I hire someone to transform it into what I want. Then at that point, it might be much more intelligent and better price-wise to hire that person in the first place and have them do it custom for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't always work out, because in one instance, a client hired me to help him with putting a prefab on his lot in Berkeley. And what ended up happening is that he wanted to go kind of inexpensive and chose a company from Canada. So the thing came completely, no, it didn't come because we didn't go through the whole process because of neighbors. It's Berkeley. But the thing was supposed to come with windows already, and he was thinking he was going to save money because it was all pre-assembled. Well, the thing is that he's in the fire zone. The windows from Canada are not going to be passing in Berkeley. So you have to know all these little details.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
the moment you have to do just one modification that is an add up, you know,
It's custom.
Yeah, it's the same that with other products that you see out there. If you buy it, okay, this is what I want, and I won't change a thing. It makes sense. The moment you say, okay, I'll take this as a base, you know, take closet solutions. You know, I'll take this as a base, and then I want it slightly different. And by the time you think that, it's already going to cost you much more than having someone do it custom for you. And that's something that sometimes clients have a difficulty understanding, because, oh, it's just a window. But just that window means that you don't have that standard product anymore.
Right, right.
The moment you're modifying that, it's no longer the standard product that you looked up in the first place. So that's something that I think is very important to convey to clients is, what is the difference? Okay, can you really use this as is? Or are you going to start saying, okay, I want it like this, but then the windows have to face the other side and they have to be larger, and I need an extra window, or I want, at that point, then you have to stop your client and say, okay, do you know what that means in terms of what you're going to spend? Because it's going to be a different picture.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious, Andrea, what, maybe you told that, but I didn't quite get it. What did the family finally choose? The last image you showed us with the...
Oh, no? we're still talking about it. What the process brought up for them was really thinking about who's going to be in it. So at first they said, oh, no, it will be family, you know, for their daughter, or they'll be in it. And so a shared space is fine. It can open up. But then they said, well, no, actually, maybe we may live in it and rent out the main house. And then they said, well, can they still face each other, and can you bifurcate, you know, that leftover space for each, which that's what we'll show is pretty narrow.
Yeah.
And it really is like, if the main house people are out there, you probably wouldn't also go out unless you became friends. So we're sort of we're unpacking how they'll really use it. And they may want them to face each other. Mm-hmm. And so then we're looking at that landscape space in between.
It's that process of really making someone for your client and asking all the questions and going through the motions to get everything aligned exactly as the client wants it. That is so important, because if you don't do that correctly, you don't allow time for that, you'll end up having to correct things later. And you know, it's really a very fascinating process every time that you work with a client, how to have that happen, that magic between the what is needed and wanted and what is possible, and how you can make it happen for them. And I think you showed a couple of very beautiful options. You're a great architect, really. And well, you do something that I find amazing, is the combination of in and out, which California is like the space to do that, right? And you embody exactly that atmosphere of creating your rooms, indoor or outdoor. You know, you just extend the life of a property in that sense, if you will. And that is really beautiful. I really like that very much from your work.
Thank
So
you.
Andrea, is your background also in landscape?
It is, yeah. So my
That is
undergraduate
wonderful.
is a Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture, and then I have a master's degree in architecture.
Oh, okay. I have that part missing because I have a Bachelor of Science in Architecture and a Master's of Design, Master's of Architecture.
Yeah.
So I'm always missing the plants.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you know, and depending on where you went to school as an architect, some schools really look at context and site planning as part of understanding architecture more than others.
Yes.
So what I presented, you know, there's probably a little bit more skill and adeptness to how the plants and outdoor spaces are shaped, but a good architect shapes that space too. They're looking at the whole site and the entry, but some don't. You know, we had I know we're at noon, but there's a woman in Berkeley who had several designs, and they were like pencil on paper, and it's just a floor plan on a white piece of paper. No survey had been done, no site, there's no context for it. And it was this bar, and she was pretty happy with it, but she was, you know, talking to our firm, and I went out to the site, and it slopes 3 feet from one side to another.
Oh, yeah.
So that can't be a slab on grade rectangle. And there may be an easement, just like Kasha's, going diagonal right through her property.
Yeah.
So there are, you know, architects, whoever that was, who's like just not a real disservice to her. And then others like, you know, Kasha and Juliet, you know, your training sort of in the site. You can bring a lot of understanding. So even if it's not a firm like ours, which is landscape architects and architects, you know, a small firm is making sure you have an architect who's looking at your site and outdoor spaces and all that connection, because, you know, good ones do. Yeah.
It starts there. That is the conditioner of architecture, is everything you see in dotted lines. That is what creates your window of opportunity, and you better know that. That is really, and I studied in 2 very different systems. Brazil was, my degree and license is as an architect, urban designer. So it's when you study in Brazil, that is really it's integrated in your study. Probably because of all the very large cities that you have so much context that you really have to understand that. And then in the Netherlands, it was totally different. It was like architecture was one kind of education with really a very strong design aspect. And urban design was much more a planning kind of exercise when I arrived in the Netherlands. And I forced my students almost to become architects also, because I said, no way you can design a city without understanding architecture and that tradition. You know, you cannot do that. It doesn't exist. And now it changed the curriculum in the Netherlands. So I guess I talked so long that they started.
Good job.
Great.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah. Who wants to ask another question? Cassie, I'm going to see if someone here, maybe Kim or Francesca or Ginger.
Thank you all so much. Great presentation, Andrea.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Reach out if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll connect you guys. Yeah. What time is it? Oh gosh, you guys, this has been so exciting that it's already 12 o'clock. But yes. I'm not hearing you.
Oh, she's unmuted, but we can't hear her.
Yeah, we cannot hear you. Oh.
Oh,
Oh.
oh, I love you too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ginger.
Okay, I want to give one last opportunity to someone to ask a question. Alan, you're so silent today.
Because he knows me.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you too. There's something wrong today with the Zoom. Okay, there you go.
Can you unmute everybody, maybe?
Everyone, Juliet.
Yeah, I'm hearing Cassia and Alan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear Francesca.
Did you unmute everyone?
I can do that, but you guys should be able to do that yourselves. You're not muted. Not on my
neither is
side.
Alan. He might not have it running through his internet or something. You know, the sound or the speaking.
Yeah, it's weird. Today
That all
we.
comes integrated.
Oh, now I hear you, Alan.
No, that's me.
Yeah, the microphone. I got to have it in my mouth basically to be heard.
Oh,
Anyway,
now we hear you.
What I noticed, or what comes to my mind is, as an architect, you've got to be aware of, millions of rules and regulations going back and forth to the city. Can we build that? Can we build also have to know construction techniques. Is that going to work? And now with the ADUs, it adds a whole nother layer of administration.
Mm-hmm.
And the survey is really number one, absolutely number one, in my experience. Without a survey, you are just paddling upstream. And then even after that, as an architect, I mean, how much do you have to know, for God's sakes, Really? And, how often do you have to go back and forth to the city to get it ironed out? As a contractor, I had a very short patience, to be honest with you. I would always try and make somebody else do it.
That's the easy way out, Alan.
That was one of the wonderful things about becoming a handyman. I didn't have to do that anymore.
Permits,
We can
I know what you're talking about, and I mean the layer of administration is just spectacular.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Francesca.
Yeah, I have a question for Andrea. What would be the first step if I'm just considering it, and I'm here in Berkeley. I'm actually 3 houses down from Juliet. I'm just thinking about, whether adding on top or a certain corner of my yard, or I'm just beginning to think about it. What would be the first step?
The survey.
The survey and talking to an architect.
Okay.
Yeah, talking to a few.
Talking to neighbors.
Neighbors?
Yeah.
Well, we're the homeowners, so it would have to go through a homeowner's approval too.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have a homeowners association?
Yeah.
So that too. So you check what their rules and regulations are. Start talking to a few different, architecture firms. I'm happy to talk to you. And getting a survey. And I know a name of a surveyor who gathers everything that you need, similar to the one I showed you. Getting what's hard is homeowners tend to, they'd love to have you come out to the site and say, well, it's probably cheaper to go up than it is to go down, or they just kind of want a general sense of what the best is. You can sometimes look at a property and kind of tell that one is just scratch that idea. The cost will be very high, but most likely you have to hire the architect to get and have the survey. You look at the foundation. If you're going up, that needs to be redone. You need to look at height limits. There's a lot of information, and we get calls. We've gotten a call once a week for the last 3 weeks. We don't know if we should go down, up, or back.
Yeah. That's sort of where I am, but also sort of the conversation before of how do you want to live and what is it for? And then projecting out 5, 10, 20 years, what is it leading towards?
Yeah.
So that part of you know, the project too. Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And working with an architect who can ask those questions and then give you resources for people to talk to. You know,
Right.
whether a realtor who can tell you how much everything tends to sell for in your neighborhood, how much it makes sense to invest in, and how much you get back.
Yeah.
You know, the team of people that helps you make that decision. But
Mhm.
also you sitting down and thinking, yeah, do I want to, yeah, I can invest more in this property because I want to sell and retire somewhere else because I want to leave this to children or a family member. You know, what are your longer term goals for
Yeah.
the property?
Yeah. It seems like it starts with the personal first. You know,
Yeah.
once you kind of iron out your own
Yeah.
direction, then you have that information for the people that you're calling in. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And-
what can happen with that personal information as part of design, which I know Juliet and Kasha can speak to, is you may say, okay, I really have as clear idea as I can about what's going to be meaningful to me. And then what you might find in the design process is like, oh, wow.
I never thought of that. Yeah.
If I'm bothering to go back or up, I can also get a little bonus note for something,
Yeah.
you know, in a day bed. Like there's opportunity in design that actually it's iterative, right? Like you make
Yeah.
the design shows you something, you rethink something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
And
that's fun. That's
your
That's
case,
the fun part. That's the fun part, right? Is
in
all
your
that
case,
exciting, huh?
Francesca, I'm seeing a massive opportunity to create views. I mean, you're sitting in one of the most beautiful areas in town,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
if you go up, you
No,
have like Tilden in front of you. I mean, you know,
no,
that
I'm
is.
thinking up because I don't know if you can see, but I have a hillside behind me, and
Yeah.
it's the easements and other stuff. But anyway, yeah, no, I see you, Gary. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my thinking. But thank you. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Juliet, for hosting.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way,
Gary.
Francesca, Andrea, you should know Francesca anyway and take the time to meet her because she's an amazing artist. She is my my encaustics teacher, and whenever we can, not right now, but I'm really counting the days, I do encaustics with her, and she has a portfolio of work that is quite impressive. Also, when you talk to clients, you know, it makes sometimes makes sense to connect them with good artists, and here's one.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you very
much. Yeah.
You guys, this was really great. It took a little longer than the 12 o'clock, but we are never rigorous here. I mean, if the discussion is good, we just keep going. Thank you so much for showing up once again. This is Refresh Coffee Time every Saturday with a new topic and exciting speakers. And we are here to connect you with what makes sense with you, only you. Have a wonderful Saturday.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Juliet.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.